What is up, RotoGrinders? Happy Thanksgiving. Good morning. I love me some American Thanksgiving football, especially because it's just like a regular day for me here in Canada, but I happen to get football all day long. It is so exciting. My name is TJ Zwarych. I'll be your host of the Pre-Lock Show here today, joined by one of the sharpest minds in the biz, tournament extraordinaire, projection extraordinaire, Kyle Murray. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, you're far too kind with the intro, but yeah, I'm doing good. It's a fun day, Thanksgiving. Even though we do celebrate it here pretty big, but not like in Canada. But I didn't even really think about that. I was like, but just because I never really experienced not having Thanksgiving on this day. But I love it. Favorite day of the year, I would say one of them from a football perspective, just because you get usually three pretty good games. Some of my favorite food personally. Me and Chop talked about it the other day about turkey food. Do you like Thanksgiving Day food? Like, do you guys partake?
Yeah, I find there's so many people that are just like, turkey is overrated, Thanksgiving food is overrated, and to me that just means you're not very great at cooking it. Just you need to do a little bit better. You're not making your turkey juicy enough. You're not seasoning things properly. And so yeah, I'm a big fan. Give me any kind of potato, I'm gonna like it, but especially some nice mashed potatoes. Throw some gravy on there with the turkey and the stuffing. I like just getting like a nice and big mishmash of things and eating it all up at once. So yeah, I'm a pretty big fan.
Yeah, you combine that with football, and it's a pretty good day for me. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me as well. And there is a whole day of festivities in football. Doug Harrelson in the YouTube chat asking, any chance y'all are also answering showdown questions? I'm setting my all my lineups for the whole day right now before festivities. Yes, we will touch on some showdown stuff as well because there's 3 different games. We're not going to go like super in-depth strategy-wise for each of them, but we'll talk through what we think is going to happen, our favorite plays, and then if you have QQs, we'll answer those as well. Kind of our agenda is we'll do some general strategy. We'll go through a game by game of the 3 ones, talk about who we like, how we think the games are going to go, a little bit of showdown stuff, and then we'll do a Fanduel build. We'll close with a Draftkings build, and then we'll get some QQs here before the end of the show. Maybe we'll get out of here a little bit before lock. We will see. And so if you have any questions, drop them in the Discord, RotoGrinders Discord, live stream chat. That's where I'm going to be looking first. And then I will be going to the YouTube chat second. And make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, hit that little notification bell. I already see over 100 of you here. Nice, bright and early. I'm not going to even look at QQs in the YouTube chat until we get 50 likes. So smash that like button. And let's get way up on these likes so that we can take some QQs from there as well. What are your kind of Thanksgiving Day plans today, Kyle? I want to know, 1, what you're doing throughout the day, and 2, what you're doing with your lineups throughout the day. How many are you playing? What sites? What contests, etc.
Yeah, so I'll be at the parents' place all day pretty much. So it's a pretty good setup over there for football watching. Personally, I'm only doing 3 lineups today, just a little bit easier to manage. But that's for the the full 3 game slate. I'll definitely be using Sim Labs to throw in some showdown lineups probably throughout the day. So we'll definitely you got to get the sweat in, right? So I'll definitely be adding lineups throughout the day in terms of showdown. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And it is a very exciting time for Sim Labs because the beta version of our new NFL lineup building tool, Sim Labs, is here. And we just added FanDuel compatibility for Thanksgiving and Sunday slates. So you got FanDuel there as well as DraftKings. Use Sim Labs to generate DFS lineups through the power of simulation. It combines data from every aspect of the slate to turn out lineups that match your preferences. In just a few clicks, you can have hundreds of well-built, well-correlated lineups ready to go for whatever contest type you're playing. Check out the link in our description for more info. These stupid dogs are trying to fight each other right now, so I'm going to grab one of them so they can't make any more rustling noise. How's it going, Obi? Say hello to RotoGrinders. So you're like, what are you using Sim Labs for today? Is that just for are you going to use it for the single entry, or are you going to use it for the main as well?
I've been toying around with it for the 3 max builds that I have. So for me personally, if I have less than usually 20 lineups, I will hand build. So I probably won't, throw those in there. But sometimes I like to get ideas for like, starting spots or what I want to do with, different lineups, or just make sure that I'm not missing anything in builds. So that's what I'll sort of use that for. And then for the showdown, usually when I do showdown, I either do one lineup or I do as many lineups as I can. So when it comes down to those two later games, I'll probably, be using SimLabs to, you know, max out some contests for Showdown.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna for the last game. That's the only thing I haven't entered yet is single entry for the last game. I figured I'd have a little bit more time. Contest won't be filling there yet.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of like big overlay in some certain things for the main slate stuff. Like there's a lot of like qualifiers to the World Fantasy Football Championship on DraftKings that are like half full right now. And so definitely interesting to potentially get in those with some overlay. But yeah, that last game I haven't entered yet. I'm probably going to see how much I'm going to play based on how the early games go for me. I hand built about 10 single entries for the early game, one bigger one, or sorry, not 10 single entries, 10 lineups for the early game, and then one bigger single entry for the middle game, and then kind of to be determined on the last one. And then I hand built 15 tournament lineups for the main slates, and then I have one cash lineup for that one as well. So really, really excited to dive into this one until Jahmyr Gibbs, who I'm underweight on, breaks off 2 80-yard touchdowns and ruins my day in the very first game of the slate. So looking forward to that happening. But let's start diving into this. Let's kind of start going game by game a little bit, starting with Green Bay and Detroit. I'll pull up the showdown slate stuff, but we can talk about it just as a whole. First off, how do you think this game is going to go? We got Detroit is 8.5-point favorites at home on Thanksgiving. Do you buy that? Are you thinking Detroit's going to handle this one, or do you think Green Bay's got a shot? No, you are muted.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
I would say, yeah, I think Detroit wins this one pretty easily. I think the 8.5-point spread's a pretty big one, but Green Bay they're pretty banged up. No Jair Alexander, no Aaron Jones. AJ Dillon was dealing with an injury coming into the game, so a lot of issues for Green Bay. And you could say with Jones and Alexander, that's probably their two best players out for this one. So Detroit won pretty easily against Green Bay. I think it was week 4, Thursday Night Football. We did see Detroit play probably their worst game of the year last week against Chicago. Maybe that was a little bit of a trap spot where they were looking ahead to Thanksgiving a little bit, but I think Detroit wins. I think they take care of business pretty easily, but I wouldn't be surprised if this game stays a little bit closer. I just feel like, obviously these two teams are, pretty intense rivals. So I do think it'll be a little bit closer. If I had to pick on the spread, I would probably take Green Bay plus 8.5 just because it is a big number. But I do think Detroit wins the game and controls a lot of the tempo and the game script.
Yep, I am absolutely with you there as well. Like on paper, Detroit should be able to handle these guys really easy. But like you said, it's a divisional matchup. It's a rivalry. It's Thanksgiving. We just saw what Chicago did to Detroit in their own building last week. They showed that like even a much inferior team can go right to the wire with them, and they looked like they were going to win until they gave it away at the end. So Detroit's going to have to, I think, kind of show teams that they're for real before people buy into them as a Super Bowl contender. And they're going to have to take care of the easy teams like the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. And so I do think they take care of business here. Before we dive into the showdown stuff, what do you think of just kind of like straight up for the main slate, whether this be a cash or a single entry? Let's say cash so that you're not even factoring quarterback into it as much. Who is your priority if you're choosing one? Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb.
I give a slight edge to Lamb here. And, I was at first when we were doing the Sunday best in the core plays, I was actually debating between Amon-Ra over CeeDee Lamb on Fanduel, specifically just because of the fact that the price was so different. But I think I just give the edge to Lamb because I think just in general, his touchdown equity is just a bit higher. And I do think that, coming off of last week where he kind of had a down game, I don't think people will, dismiss that completely, but I do think that maybe that's a game that you probably write off. That was a bad game for him, and he put up 16.5 DK points and only 9 targets. I do think that if he is able to continue to dominate the target share there, he went on that 3-week stretch with 11 plus catches, 150 plus yards in 3 straight games. That's the kind of upside that you have. I just think that I give CeeDee Lamb just a little bit more safety in terms of his quality of I guess play, but they're both excellent plays.
Maybe not so much Jamar Chase, but and Justin Jefferson, but it was a good year to get a first round pick in fantasy football this year and pick a wide receiver with Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill earlier on, even Keenan Allen, somebody like that, like all these AJ Brown, all these big name receivers outside of the top 2 picks are really putting up some massive numbers this year. I'm with you. On DraftKings, I prioritize CeeDee Lamb a little bit more because I think Detroit's going to run away with this game, and I think Dallas is going to be playing with a lead. But the difference is, I think when Detroit has the lead, they're just going to be handing the ball off to David Montgomery. And I think when Dallas has the lead, Dak is still going to be throwing the ball down the Washington Commanders' throats. And I trust Sam Howell to keep putting up some more points, sticking in that game a little bit more than I do Jordan Love. And so that's kind of how I'm looking at this one as well. On FanDuel, I probably would rank them St. Brown 1, Lamb 2, and McCaffrey 3 because of their prices. But to do you one, like take it one step further, how do you rank them 1 through 3 on DraftKings where they're 8,500, 8,700, 8,700? McCaffrey, Lamb, and St. Brown.
Yeah, it would be in that order actually. CMC, Lamb, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, I think a lot of my opinions are obviously going to be baked into the projections, but I just think that in terms of the way they project and the price difference there's really no price difference on DraftKings essentially, and I think that with the way McCaffrey sort of sets up in this spot with his usage, that has been incredible all year long. And then I guess same thing goes for CeeDee Lamb. I mean, Amon-Ra had a great role as well, but I just think that those two that at their peak, their roles are just so much higher than Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that's a big part of what you alluded to, the running backs, like you mentioned Montgomery, but also Jahmyr Gibbs involved in the running game and the passing game as well. Like McCaffrey's going to be the guy there pretty much throughout. Obviously, you're going to have spots where Debo and Ayuk and Kittle mix in, but for the most part, McCaffrey's the guy with the big time ceiling there. And then same thing goes for Lamb. So I would rank them in that order: CMC, Lamb, and then St. Brown.
Yeah, 100%. I am with you there as well. Let's keep getting these likes up on YouTube. We're up over 200 viewers now. Let's get these way up here because we're only at 20 right now. I want to hit a QQ from the Discord first here because this is relevant to the first game here. On a FanDuel cash build, would you go CMC and Watson or Robinson and St. Brown? I already have Lamb in, and I could play Dillon instead of Robinson. So would you go with a running back of Robinson or AJ Dillon and St. Brown, or would you go CMC and Christian Watson?
I'll take the CMC side there. And are we talking James Robinson there?
Bijan.
Okay, I thought we were still on Showdown for a minute there, so I was I just wanted to make sure that we were not playing, because I did see a tweet about James Robinson earlier, and I just wanted to make sure that nobody was playing James Robinson, who's on the Packers now, and I know they're dealing with injury, but I'll take the first side of that.
And then on that next note, the very next question in the Discord is about James Robinson. QQ, on a FanDuel large field, do you think James Robinson gets any run for the Packers as a dart throw on the main slate and on the Showdown? Can you play James Robinson?
Not on the main slate, I don't think. Too many other plays that you can take shots on. Like if you're gonna do that, Rico Dowdle's down there who you can take a shot on there. So that's. But for Showdown, the theory behind playing James Robinson would be, okay, is AJ Dillon actually banged up to a point where maybe he is limited, or you're worried about that, and that's when you would play him. But he's still third in the pecking order there. So from a Showdown perspective, you can do it as a dart throw, but can't play him on a main slate.
Here's the thing. I would argue that the guy that you want to be playing as that dart throw is Patrick Taylor.
Yeah.
I think especially if you're thinking that like James Robinson is a run the ball between the tackles kind of guy. I think if you're trying to play the game that if we think it's going to be a Detroit running away with this, as they likely will, then I want to look to Patrick Taylor, who I could fully see out snapping AJ Dillon today. I could see Patrick Taylor being the main guy and have him getting 7-8 targets, something like that. So Rico Dowdle and Patrick Taylor, I think, are those two cheapies that you're going to be wanting to take shots on if you are on the main slate, as opposed to James Robinson. And then while we're on that note, let's go into the DraftKings or just both of the sites showdown slate here. I really like Patrick Taylor. Patrick Taylor is probably my favorite flex option in this game. Nice and cheap on Fanduel, 1,600 on DraftKings. And he's coming in at single-digit ownership. I'm getting to a ton of Kraft and Taylor right now. My favorite builds in Showdown are give me Kraft and Taylor as my only Detroit players, as my only Green Bay players, and then let me onslaught this team, or maybe throw in Jordan Love with them, and then pick 3 of the 4 of St. Brown, Gibbs, Goff, and Montgomery.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I mean, in terms of the projections, where we have Patrick Taylor, we have him for about 26% of the team's carries right now. But to your point, in Showdown, like where you are, willing to take stabs at, different sort of game scripts or games going one way or the other, like if you're building around the 3-game slate, you're probably not going into your lineup building process saying, okay, if AJ Dillon is limited, how am I going to build a lineup? Because I mean, unless you have a ton of lineups, right? That's something that you could do. But in a Showdown, you have so much flexibility and different options there. So Patrick Taylor, I 100% agree with you, and I like the price tag on him as well.
AJ Dillon has looked really bad this year. This is very anecdotal. It's been only a small sample size for games with him without Aaron Jones. But from an efficiency standpoint, which has a lot of noise, hasn't looked good. Eye test, which is different for every person, so not very reliable, hasn't looked good. But I'm kind of buying into that today. I have 0 AJ Dillon on my 15 lineups, 0 AJ Dillon in my Showdown. Am I crazy?
No, I don't think you're crazy. I think that's a stand that you can definitely take. I mean, especially coming into the game a little banged up. He did have a much better projection before we were worried about the groin injury. It sounded like it was a little bit more, not necessarily serious because obviously he's playing, but something that might hamper him a little bit. So we did end up bumping him down a bit. So yeah, I mean, for me personally, that's a stand that I'm also going to be taking just because of the fact that I would rather play both Lions running backs over him. You can make the case for Brian Robinson over him. And then Zach Charbonnet is $100 less. And I think he's one of the better plays in the slate. So yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Doug in chat says it's because AJ Dillon is not good at football. I don't think it's that. AJ Dillon just is Eddie Lacy 2.0. He came in big, strong. Look at this dude. He just runs right through everybody. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of seemed like he had maybe a few too many Thanksgiving games where he was loading up on the turkey afterwards. And that burst just hasn't really been there anymore. So I don't know. It's weird that happened twice with the Packers where they got this big, strong dude that just kind of fades quickly. But I don't know. I'm going with no AJ Dillon today, and I'm actually playing some Patrick Taylor even on the main slate. A groin injury just scares me too. Like one cut and you're done. One cut and you're all of a sudden out for the game again, because it's groin and hamstrings are the two that are just like the most lingering injuries of anyone, that one step the wrong way all of a sudden can set you back 2-3 weeks again. What about for captains here on this showdown slate? Who would you want to roll? Say you're doing a single entry. Who would be your favorite captain to go with on in this game?
Yeah, St. Brown's probably gonna be my favorite. Obviously, not much of a hot take there. I think that would pretty much be pretty customary with the field. I think if I was looking to be a little bit contrarian, one of the Lions running backs is where I would look next. And then if I wanted to be, really contrarian, Jaden Reed, I have a lot of interest in Reed today. I think he is a very intriguing option. Obviously, we see him and Christian Watson on the main slate down there in terms of very similar in pricing, but Reed has been the best Packers receiver so far this season, and His snaps and his routes run are both trending up. We saw him take the end around to the house last week. So I personally think he's their best receiver. I think he's in this particular game. No AJ, no Aaron Jones, no Luke Musgrave. I think he's their best weapon in this game. So it'll be interesting to see if this can maybe be a coming out party for Jaden Reed. So yeah, he would be the I guess the cheaper contrarian MVP option that I like.
Yeah, I don't mind the Jaden Reed call, but for me, it's just David Montgomery season. If we're really going to see single-digit ownership on him, I want to get as much over the field on him as I possibly can, because this guy has been just an absolute monster in games that they've been winning this year. He got a ton more carries last week. Gibbs has been getting more touches and more snaps the last couple games since Montgomery came back from injury. But one, I think that was a coming back from injury things, and in addition, I think that was also because of the game scripts. These were close games where Detroit was coming from behind. And so I think if we get one where Detroit has the lead, I think Montgomery is going to be the main running back in the game. And my hot take is that David Montgomery scores not one, not two, three touchdowns on the ground today. Do you got a hot take for this one before we move on to Dallas and Washington?
Well, I mean, earlier this year, Montgomery, I think it was 3 touchdowns in that Thursday night game against the Packers. So it'd be a little bit of deja vu. And Dave Montgomery is my favorite prop bet of the day as well. Over 5.5 receiving yards was the line. So I got the over there. My hot take for this game would be that Jaden Reed scores 20 plus DraftKings points.
I like that. I'm actually putting in a quick single game parlay on this one right now. 91-1 odds. And I got are we at 50 likes? Because if we're at 50 likes, I'm going to give everybody my parlay here. How many we at? We are at 46. I need 4 more likes so I can tell you guys this great parlay I got cooking. Come on, everybody. Let's get these likes up. I'm trusting you to do it right now. So I'm going with David Montgomery, 2 total touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs, 25 plus receiving yards, 80 receiving yards for Amon-Ra St. Brown, 50 plus rushing yards for David Montgomery, 35 plus rushing yards for Jaden Reed, 20 plus for Tucker Kraft, 25 plus receiving yards for Patrick Taylor, and 5 plus rushing yards for Patrick Taylor. 91-1 odds. Feeling good about that one. Anything else on this game before we move on to the next one?
No, I think we're good.
All right. What is going on here with my computer? There we go. Let's move on to the Washington Commanders going up against the Dallas Cowboys today. This one is in Dallas. Huge spread, 13.5 total. We expected last game could potentially turn into Detroit with a big lead. This one looks like it should be exactly that, but more. How are you handling the Washington and Dallas game today? How do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, I mean, based on the spread, I'm going to be pretty in line with that. I think Dallas wins this one pretty easily. We just saw Washington lose to the Giants, which is a pretty embarrassing loss at this point in the season. So that's, things are looking pretty grim for that Washington defense right now. If Tommy DeVito is throwing for 3 touchdowns on you, probably going to expect a pretty big game here for Dak Prescott. So, yeah, I think having a lot of exposure to Dallas is going to be something that the field is really trying to do. And I think that, makes a lot of sense here. So no issue with anybody loading up on the Cowboys. And, I feel like Michael Gallup has been like the contrarian Thanksgiving Day play for like 4 years now. So it'll be interesting to see how many people go back to that well and just keep banging their head there. I think Brandon Cooks would be this year's contrarian Dallas Cowboy play. But yeah, I think that there's a ton of things that you can do here. Like obviously 30.5 implied team total. So we're expecting this team to score more than any other team on the board. So you can, take shots down the board in terms of, guys like even Jalen Tolbert, even in the 3-game slate, but Brandon Cooks as well, Ferguson, and then Michael Gallup a little bit if you wanted to. But I do think that Luke Schoonmaker is a guy that is a guy you can make a case for. Maybe not on the 3-game slate, but in showdown slate, he scored last week. His snaps have been going up a tad, not a ton, but going up a little bit. He had 2 targets last week, found the end zone. But the guy that I'm interested in on a 3-game slate on the showdown slate is Rico Dowdle. I know he's been dealing with some injury stuff at times here, but he was banged up last week, ended up playing. Was off the injury report coming into the game, so coming into today, I should say. So I'm feeling pretty good about Rico Dowdle, and if this game does get out of hand, which if you're playing him and you're really hoping for the smash spot, you're kind of hoping that it's a spot where maybe the starters are out of the game by the 10-minute mark in the fourth quarter. But he's had 10 plus touches in back-to-back games here, and he looks pretty good. I mean, he looks quick, he looks elusive. So Dowdle's a guy that I'm going to be overweight on in both the 3-game slate as well as the showdown slate. Just because, first of all, I don't think it'll take a ton to get overweight on him on the 3-game slate, and then I think the showdown slate just opens up so many possibilities there.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm going to be overweight on Rico Dowdle just because I think this game is going to turn into Dallas scoring 40-plus points. And if it does, I think Dowdle could end up being heavily involved in the second half. So I wanted to maybe get a little bit more. Oh, and turns out I lied. I do have one A.J. Dillon team. I have A.J. Dillon on my Jared Goff stack just because if I'm doing a Jared Goff stack, I need the Packers to score some points anyways. So I'm looking through this right now, and I actually do have one A.J. Dillon team, but I personally give like a slight edge for me to Patrick Taylor than Rico Dowdle, but I do really like both of these guys, and I think they're going to both be 2 potential tournament winning salary savers today. So I like that call quite a bit. If you were playing cash on the main slate today, is Dak Prescott your quarterback?
Yes. Yeah.
And then is he your favorite single entry quarterback as well?
Probably, but so right now, I mean, I have 3 lineups. I don't have a single entry lineup. I will say I have Dak in one of my 3 just because I'm willing to just be a little bit more contrarian. I'm just trying to be a little bit contrarian in the other 2. But it would either be him or Brock Purdy in the spot. It's just I think it depends on how different you want to be because it's a small slate. Dak is not going to be unknown by any means. He's going to be probably taking up potentially 40% of lineups. So if we have a game where Tony Pollard is the one to fall in the end zone a couple times, which we haven't seen yet this year, which it's good. Kind of all assumed it would happen at some point. It's yet to happen, but if that does happen, you're obviously finding yourself ahead of the field in a big way if Dak fails here. So I think it just depends on how risky you want to be with your builds.
So on DraftKings right now, there is in the 800 person, $125 fantasy football world championship qualifier, there's currently 174 spots remaining. And in the $18 5,000 max one, there's still over 1,200 spots remaining with 30 minutes left until lock. And then there's over 600 remaining in the $33 one as well. So there looks like we may get some Thanksgiving qualifier overlay for those who are interested in that kind of thing today. I just entered, as you were talking there, I just entered a Rico Dowdle team into some live final stuff. So
love it.
You'll get a shout out on Twitter if those happen to go a little bit well. Single game stuff for this one, showdown. Who would be your favorite captain for a single entry?
Going with CD. I mean, I hate to be, just taking the top receiver from the team in both these games so far, but that's just, I think that's just the way I'm going. I think I also like Pollard quite a bit, especially if you are trying to be not necessarily contrarian, because Pollard's going to have some ownership there, but I think so many people are going to build around the passing game, and that opens up some things for Pollard builds being contrarian. So, and that I don't even mind taking stabs on Dowdle in the captain spot. Obviously, you're going to open yourself up some salary by doing that, so you'll be able to get access to all the top spend ups there. And in this game, I think I would be preferring to do more often than not Dallas onslaught builds where you're using 4 or 5 Cowboys compared to multiple Commanders.
Yeah, me too. That's something I'm planning on doing. And then a guy that I like quite a bit for showdown and for the 3-game slate, just as a full out punt if you need it, is Jalen Tolbert. He's somebody that's been getting more and more involved in this Dallas offense. He's a 3K flat, and he's nice and cheap on showdown slates on both sites. And he's had at least 5 targets in, or 3.1 he is, sorry, on DraftKings. He's had at least 5 targets in 3 straight games now. He's a young guy who's been getting more and more involved in this offense. Things haven't been going well for Michael Gallup. Yeah, I think he's my favorite cheapie from this one, maybe outside of Rico Dowdle. But Dowdle's a bit more expensive in the showdown slate than Tolbert is. And so I like getting to him quite a bit. And then my favorite run back in a Dallas onslaught, hoping that he doesn't get ejected again, is Curtis Samuel. He's nice and cheap. He fits these lineups. He's nice and like he works as a run back for Dallas stacks in like the main slate. I think he was coming in a few optimal lineups that I was looking at earlier, but he's also my favorite cheapie here for Washington, in my Dallas onslaught builds. I will say that for the showdown slate, Sam Howell looks to be going quite under-owned in the captain position, and so I don't hate doing something like maybe Pollard and Dowdle, and they are looking like it's going to be a blowout early, and the running backs are getting all the points, and then Howell is my captain with a few of his pass catchers, and they get a bunch of second half points as they come through here. So I like that quite a bit. Let's pivot to the third game of the slate, the final night game, San Francisco and Seattle. The Seahawks are at home for this one, but they are dealing with some injuries. They got no Kenneth Walker. They got some guys on defense hurt. They got Geno dealing with injury, Metcalf dealing with injury, Lockett is banged up, but all those guys are playing, and San Fran is favored by a full touchdown in this one. For those who tuned in late, we're going through all of these game by game, saying what we think is going to happen, touching on showdown a little bit. Then we're going to move on to the main slate, kind of a lineup build, position by position for DraftKings, for Fanduel, and we'll end this out with QQs as well. So we got you fully covered for Thanksgiving today. Make sure you are hitting the like button. And I mean, hey, maybe if we get, how many people do we got right now? We got almost 300 people in here. I'll tell you what, if we get 125 likes, so keep smashing that like button. If we get 125 likes before we get out of here, we will maybe do a quick Prize Picks card, a quick little build of that we can do here for the main slate of, and maybe even include some of the Friday games as well on that Prize Picks card, because I wrote up 3 Thanksgiving Prize Picks articles. So there's tons of different plays you can find up on the RotoGrinders NFL page. But if we can get up to 125 likes, we'll build a little 6 player parlay card as well. So make sure you smack that like button. And one of the reasons why we can do that with such great content is because we got a props and pick'em package here right now at RotoGrinders, and you can check it out for a limited time discount. The experts at the RotoGrinders projections team, like Kyle, take our premium stats and comb through the market for any inefficiencies. Through mid-November in NBA, NFL, and NHL, we're up 38 units on our expert record. Using our model, you can easily see which lines are off, where to find them, and how likely the prop will hit based on our tool. Check out the link or description. Check out the link in our description for more. And it's great because we got the prop package, that we can use that with scores and odds. We can combine different lines on different betting sites. But then we also got the fantasy pick'em tool. So if you want to sub from, you're not in a place with legal sports betting, you don't want to do props, you want to do DFS pick'em instead, we got you covered for that too with the fantasy pick'em tool. And then we got great writers like myself firing out articles for that as well. So keep smashing that like button, and we'll build a Prize Picks team at the end here as well. But let's talk about the 49ers and Seahawks. Kind of a same, throw on a recorder from the first 2 games. I think San Francisco is going to be coming away with this one a little bit. Seattle's dealing with injuries. How do you think this one's going to be going?
Yeah, I mean, I will say one thing right off the bat from a full slate perspective. 3, projected, not necessarily blowouts, but touchdown spreads. So that's pretty important from a lineup building perspective. But yeah, for this one, I think San Francisco wins this one pretty easily. Again, Seattle team that's pretty banged up. No Kenneth Walker, a couple injuries on the defensive side with guys dealing with injuries. So I think San Francisco wins this one pretty easily, but I don't think that Seattle rolls over. I do think that their offense will be able to put up some points if Geno is healthy enough. I think that is something that I'm somewhat worried about with the elbow injury there for Geno, but I'm going to bank on him, being healthy enough to play and perform well. So I have San Francisco winning this one, but I do think that we're going to see a little bit of points here put up on both sides.
Yeah, I am with you there as well. I don't know how much Seattle is going to be putting up points today just because. Sorry, I just realized my mic switched. Hold on. Somebody was hearing an echo. Shout out to you, Otis. Hopefully that's sounding a little bit better now without the echo. No. There we go. Sorry about those technical difficulties, everyone. Hopefully, Otis listening to us on Twitch. Shout out to our Twitch viewers. Hopefully that sounds a little bit better here. No more echo. I got my AirPods in my ears here. They were charging, so hopefully that helps things out. QQ for you, Kyle. How do you feel about Kenny Mack in his first NFL action? Great pass catcher, has some moves, and is min priced for Showdown specifically.
Yeah, Showdown. I mean, I think you make a case for it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very bullish on Zach Charbonnet. And McIntosh was a good pass catcher, a good producer in college. So carrying over the production to the NFL, that's somewhere where he could potentially thrive. But honestly, that's where I think Charbonnet thrives the most is as a pass catcher. And I would be very surprised if Seattle's not using Charbonnet in a big way out of the backfield. So I think that's going to really sort of block McIntosh. I think this is a spot where Charbonnet is potentially as good as Kenneth Walker. I know Kenneth Walker is a good running back, but I think Charbonnet is a very good running back as well. And I think this could be one of those spots where, similar to when Jahmyr Gibbs took over for David Montgomery when he was out a couple weeks ago, where that RB2 just slides right into the RB1 spot, but actually has a better role than the original running back one just because of that absence, and nobody necessarily fills in behind him. So I'm very, very high on Charbonnet today. So that's probably going to lead me to being lower on McIntosh, but on Showdown, you can definitely make a case for it.
Another kind of 1v1 for the main slate I want to run by you. And yeah, first thing before I kind of gloss past that, I agree. Showdown, you can absolutely go for it. He's $200 on Showdown. I'm not trying it on the main slate, but I think you can almost try anybody who's $200 all the time, and it lets you do some pretty crazy things. If you want to do that San Francisco onslaught and you think McIntosh is in there for the second half because San Francisco's up 28 points, put your McCaffrey in the captain, go Purdy, go Debo Samuel, go Brandon Ayuk, and all of a sudden 4K for a last player. That's all of a sudden not so bad here. And so you can do some pretty cool onslaught things if you decide to put Kenny McIntosh in there. I don't think that's crazy. All he needs is like 1 or 2 receptions at that price tag, and that might end up being all that you need in that situation. So I think that is viable as well. Favorite captain for Showdown, and then we'll pivot to a Fanduel build, then a Draftkings build, then QQs. We got 20 minutes to lock.
Yeah, again, I feel like I've just been giving the chalk answers, but McCaffrey is my favorite. I just think that in those 3 games, those top 3 players are just so far ahead of the rest of these. We actually got a pretty interesting report. Apparently, LaFleur just said A.J. Dillon will carry the load on Thursday, whatever that means. Who knows how trustworthy we want to feel about that, but it's definitely something that tells me at least that they feel okay about his injury, which is somewhat important. But anyway, for this game,
I don't like that. I don't like hearing that as somebody who is incredibly underweight on A.J. Dillon.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to be able to carry the load. I think he's already carrying too much of a load, and the Detroit Lions defense is going to pile on top of him. I don't think they're going to be able to carry that load when he's got 4 defensive linemen piled on top of him.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, if you are someone who's fading A.J. Dillon, I think the biggest thing that you're fading is his efficiency, right? Like he's just a guy who hasn't been efficient. So, him getting a few more touches, a few more carries, that's obviously not ideal if you're fading him, but you'll still be fine. We saw it. I think it was like week 2 through 4 with Aaron Jones out. We were all excited about A.J. Dillon on the main slate being
did not work.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, he was like so bad. So I will say last week he had his argue his best week on the ground from an efficiency perspective, and had 11% of the targets. So AJ Dillon, I mean, he's not dead, that's for sure. But if you are fading him, you're still, even if he does have a spot where he's carrying all of the load, you're still in a spot to be fine just because of the fact that he can be very inefficient.
Yep, I think that is very true as well. Well said. It does just, I still think, and even coach speak is coach speak. They just flat out lie sometimes. But I think even if AJ Dillon is quote unquote carrying the load, we still end up seeing Patrick Taylor in the second half if they need to throw. Like if they need a receiving back, it makes sense that he's going to be more involved there because AJ Dillon is not a very good pass catching back. And so where is that Rico Dowdle team I was trying to make? I'm just trying to enter it in one more contest and it disappeared. There it is. All right. I think we can move on to a FanDuel build here quick. We'll talk about, like, we're not going to go like super in-depth to build a lineup, but we'll just go position by position, talk about our favorites based on ownership, and then we'll get to some QQs. So at the quarterback position, Dak is a little bit tougher to get to, I think, on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. I don't think on DraftKings, to me, he's by far my favorite. But on FanDuel, where the price difference is a little bit more egregious, I don't think it's like, I still think he's the single entry guy today. But I really like Sam Howell in tournaments as well. I don't think it's crazy to go to Howell or Love here.
Yeah, I agree. I think my second favorite quarterback's Purdy today, so that's where my interest would be. But I think both of those guys make plenty of sense. And you can, I mean, I'm a little worried about his injury, but you can even throw Geno Smith into the mix there just because of the fact that he's so much cheaper than all the other quarterbacks. But I guess for me, I would go Purdy, then Howell, then Love, then Geno. But yeah, I think you can make a good case for all these guys. And obviously, Goff is also in play. You can pretty much play any quarterback on the slate today.
Yeah, honestly, I think you can. I do have at least one stack of each of them in my 16 lineups. To me, it's Dak 1, Howell 2, Love 3, Purdy 4, Smith 5, and Goff last on FanDuel, just because Goff, that price tag, I just don't really like on him today. I don't know how much upside he has for that price tag. Running back position, McCaffrey's priority 1, but he's tough to get to. Jahmyr Gibbs is priced up here. Tony Pollard has crazy ownership for a guy who has scored a touchdown in week 1 and week 11 and nothing since and nothing else in between. So, and then you have Zach Charbonnet as the chalk cheapy du jour. Who do you like here, running back? How are you prioritizing these guys?
Yeah, big fan of Charbonnet today. I will say on FanDuel, I don't want to say I'm less interested because I still like him a lot. I'll still be very overweight on him there, but easier to fade there just because I do think that a lot of his viability and his interest is going to be in the passing game, especially in a spot where they're a touchdown underdog. I think they're going to be throwing a lot. I think that I think that Charbonnet has realistic 5-6 catch upside today. So that's something that obviously is better over on DraftKings, but I think he's really strong. And then Pollard, really cheap on FanDuel, 7,200. So if you're not, this kind of applies to DraftKings too, but if you're not playing Dak, you almost certainly want to have Pollard, or at least up your interest in Pollard or Rico Dowdle if you're just sort of hoping that the game sort of blows out in a way where who knows, maybe Dallas gets a defensive touchdown or whatever it may be. But so Pollard definitely interesting on FanDuel at 7,200, and then even more interesting if you're not playing Dak.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'd probably want to have one of Dak or a Dallas running back on every single lineup I played today. For what it's worth, I was talking about Patrick Taylor before. That's just like a DraftKings only play for me where it's point per reception. On FanDuel, if I'm not getting up for McCaffrey, I love Charbonnet as a cheapie, but also David Montgomery for tournament play. I think position on the slate, I think he should be much higher owned. They're favorites. He's going to be very heavily involved near the goal line there. I don't understand really why Jahmyr Gibbs, who is more expensive, has twice as much ownership as David Montgomery in projections. That one doesn't really make sense to me. Just realizing I'm in the Blitz projections right now. I should probably switch that to RotoGrinders. There we go. Moving over to the wide receiver position. We talked about prioritizing CeeDee Lamb just a little bit over AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown. But if you need that savings, it's totally fine. I'm going to pick up the pace here for FanDuel just so we got some time for DraftKings. These cheapies of Dobbs, Reed, Cooks, Samuel, Watson, JSN. I think all of them make sense today for tournaments. My favorite of that group, though, based on ownership, it's Curtis Samuel by far.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Samuel, I think, is a guy who's going to be, pretty low, and just because obviously he got tossed last game, but people are going to look at the box score and see that, and some people might not even know that he was actually ejected, and just see the low score and call it a day on him. But yeah, and obviously tough matchup too. So, but like for a guy who's a slot receiver, like you are less impacted by the matchup. But I would say in this particular matchup against Dallas, so yeah, I think that's totally fine. And you can see on FanDuel a little bit lower projection just because he's a PPR type guy, but he could easily find the end zone. So yeah, I don't mind that at all.
I'm in a I'm in like a super flex league for season long this year, and some foolish person, because they needed help on a bye week before, dropped Trevor Lawrence, and I just picked him up, and that's pretty exciting stuff. I've been starting like a Browns backup the past couple of weeks in the second spot, and I just got Lawrence, so that's exciting. Tight end, George Kittle is pricey. Jake Ferguson is the chalk kind of cash game play. Sam Laporta totally fine as well. Logan Thomas, also a reasonable option. Who of those guys is your favorites? And are you going with the full punt for Tucker Kraft? I think that's what I would for sure do on FanDuel personally, where it's like, I don't want to play 6K for Jake Ferguson. I think even in a cash game and a single entry, I like Tucker Kraft best at 4.3K.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I think for me, for tight end, I'm either prioritizing one of these top two guys in Kittle or Laporta, or I'm just trying to correlate the position. So if you're using Dak, throw in Ferguson. If you're using Jordan Love or Jared Goff, Kraft makes some sense. Or just like looking for value, right? And I think of the value guys, Kraft is definitely my favorite. Obviously, we're expecting him to start and see a pretty solid role. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be anything crazy where he's getting. We have him, I think, for like 14% of the team's targets, which is more than fine. Makes him more than viable. So yeah, he's the value option on the slate. So either using one of these top two guys that have the ceilings, who I think are Kittle or Laporta. I also like Ferguson quite a bit. I think you can put him in that realm as well. And then after that, either punting the position with Kraft or just correlating the position.
Carolina guy in chat wants to know favorite FanDuel single entry stack. So while we're still on FanDuel, I'll get there. For me, it's Dak Prescott with just like a big full stack. Don't just do Lamb or Ferguson. Do Lamb, Ferguson, and Cooks. Throw in some Jalen Tolbert. Throw in some Rico Dowdle, and just do a full stack there. FanDuel GPP large field's favorite stack. My favorite is Sam Howell, and then I believe Kyle's was Brock Purdy, and mixing some of those receivers in there as well. Kyle, who do you like better here for a FanDuel cash build, Brandon Cooks or JSN?
I think I give the edge to Cooks. I think, and when you say cash, I think the only reason I say that is because the implied team totals there. You're expecting Dallas to score almost double what we're expecting Seattle to score, so a little bit more touchdown upside there. But I think, yeah, I guess I'll go Cooks slightly, even though I do think JSN's a pretty interesting play today.
QQ, do you know who Jair Brown will be covering today in the Niners Seahawks game? He actually said Sea Chickens game. Do you know who Jair Brown would be covering?
I do not know, not off the top of my head.
No, I personally don't either. Not sure if it's going to be. Usually it'd be Metcalf. Like if that's like I honestly don't even know. Didn't look into that too much. I don't know if that's a matchup we're wanting to be targeting or if that's a shutdown guy. But that's not something I worry about too much for that one. But unless it's like the best of the best, like it's not, the individual matchup isn't something I consider, because in today's NFL, they move people around so much.
Yep.
No JSN love for FanDuel cash. Otherwise it's Jameson or Gallup. I don't like either of those. I don't. Oh, that's yeah. He's a rookie that they're just putting in. I'm assuming they're going to try and hide him, and he's not going to be covering an individual person for the whole game. Then, I don't love JSN, Jameson, or Gallup for cash. I'd probably try and adjust something, but of that group, I do think it would be JSN.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, from a cash perspective, I don't think any of those guys are really cash plays. But I would also go JSN out of that group.
QQ on DK, do you like playing Amon Ra instead of CD with Dak in GPPs to get a little bit different? I did do that in one lineup. I don't hate it, but what I would say is I'd want to play like at least Cooks and Ferguson, but maybe some Jalen Tolbert on top of that, or Pollard even if I'm not playing CD Lamb.
Yeah, totally agree. I think on this slate, you want to definitely make sure you're correlating your quarterback, especially if it's a guy that you're hoping to get a lot of passing production out of, just because there's only so much production to go around on the slate with only 3 games. So I would definitely keep that in mind.
Draftkings quarterback position, Dak Prescott to me is more of a priority because he's easier to get to. Sam Howell is still my favorite large field tournament one. Is Purdy the same for you?
Yeah, I prefer Purdy. He's the guy after Dak that I like the most.
And then for me, the only really difference between FanDuel and DraftKings is I want to prioritize Jordan Love more on DraftKings because he is so cheap, and I do think they're going to be coming from behind. So while I don't like the Packers today, I don't hate some Jordan Love lineups, thinking that they're likely going to have to be throwing a lot in the second half. At the running back position, McCaffrey is way easier to get to. I think he becomes a much bigger priority. David Montgomery is still my personal favorite in tournaments. I just don't understand why he's coming in projected sub 20% ownership today. And then Zach Charbonnet, I agree. That's good chalk to me. I'm choosing Charbonnet over AJ Dillon 10 times out of 10. One question I want to have for you is assume we get, does your answer differ based on the status of Antonio Gibson? If Gibson's in or out, would this change? But at a flex position, who would you choose? A 5,900 Deebo Samuel or a 5,900 Brian Robinson?
I'm going Deebo probably regardless of Gibson. I like Deebo quite a bit today. He's been a Seahawk killer over the past few years. He's actually averaging over 130 all-purpose yards a game against the Seahawks in 4 games, and he has 3 touchdowns in those games. Obviously, that doesn't really always translate year over year, but we're seeing a lot of similarities scheme-wise from Seattle, even though they did add some new players in the draft the past couple of years that have been really strong for them, especially in the secondary. But just regardless, I think I like Deebo a little bit more. I will say though, Gibson being out would help Robinson quite a bit, just because that adds to his pass game upside, which I typically don't really give him a lot of credit for in that realm if Gibson's healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes sense. Oh, I'm just 100 away from getting a lineup that I absolutely adore on DraftKings, and I'm just unable to do it. But it is what it is. That happens. Cheapies at this position, I like Jaden Reed. I think is the best kind of optimal cheapie of this group. I like him a little bit better than Christian Watson and Brandon Cooks in this one. I like all 3 of those guys, though, better than JSN and Gallup. Curtis Samuel, by far my favorite for tournament, same as FanDuel. Cheapest of the group, not picking up. He's picking up single-digit ownership. I think Jameson Williams is fine for tournaments. And then I really like Jalen Tolbert as a large field tournament play as well. I liked him before I saw Beimfor's tag, and then when I saw Beimfor's tag, it made me like him even more because he's been crushing it all season at just picking out random cheap receivers who do well. And so on a small slate when nobody's playing them, I want to get to that even more. Anybody else you like at receiver before we move on?
Jaden Reed is probably my favorite receiver on the board, I would say, from a outside of the top couple of guys. I mentioned earlier his snap and route trends I like a lot, so I'll say Jaden Reed.
Favorite MVP for the Green Bay Detroit game, FanDuel single entry. I think for me it's David Montgomery. You get a lot of touchdown equity over there, and he's coming in lower owned. I love me some David Montgomery in that spot. DK Cash, who do you like better, Lockett or Deebo? I think that's Deebo by far. Sorry, as I just crushed through these a little quick to make sure we hit everything. Reed and Packers defense or Dobbs and Seattle defense? Which would you like there? FanDuel Cash.
As long as you're not using a ton of Lions or anything like that, I would take the Reed side.
Yeah, me as well. Tight ends here. It's a little bit different than for me on this site than it is on Fanduel because I like Logan Thomas and Jake Ferguson a lot more here because they do have such significant salary savings over Kittle and Laporta. Still don't mind me some Laporta, but I would prioritize Ferguson here. And then again, Tucker Kraft, probably like my favorite, really cheap guy by far.
Yeah, I pretty much am in lockstep with you there. I think again I'll be just correlating the position a lot, but Kraft makes a lot of sense as the value option. So pretty much lockstep.
4 minutes to lock. Make sure you get your lineups in. Get your I've covered all the QQs in DraftKings now, and then I'm on to the YouTube chat. Make sure you hit that like button as well. Let's see here. Anything back at the beginning? No, we covered all of those. Perfect is Reed in for Green Bay. Yes, he is. Charbonnet and Kraft or Ferguson and JSN?
I'll take the Charbonnet side.
Yeah, me as well. I think it's that one by far. Patrick Reed isn't on lineup HQ. Is he playing? Patrick Reed is a golfer. Patrick Taylor is the running back. Jaden Reed is the receiver. Apologies if I messed up that a little bit, but that'd be why you're looking for Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed. I see you, CHM boss. Relax. I'm gonna hit it. Don't worry. Jahmyr Gibbs or Goff in a showdown. I need to know more, though. Is it your captain? Is it your flex? What does the rest of your lineup look like? I think just in a straight up 1-for-1, it would be Gibbs for me out of Gibbs and Goff, but it really does depend on the rest of your lineup. And yeah, Patrick Taylor is there in lineup HQ now. He's 4.2K on DraftKings. Montgomery is the captain. If you have, so for CHM boss, Montgomery is the captain. If you have Detroit Lions defense on that team, I would go Gibbs. If you do not, I would probably go Goff. What say you to that?
I personally, with Montgomery as captain, I'm going Goff just because, Montgomery captain, you're hoping for multiple touchdowns, and obviously that's going to take away from Gibbs. They can both still get there, don't get me wrong, but I just think, I guess neither of them really correlate all that great. Montgomery scoring 2 rushing touchdowns. I'll still go Goff though.
I like it. He does have Lions DST on that team, so I think since you're going basically full onslaught, I like Gibbs just because they'll probably both get touches in that situation. And Patrick Taylor and Jaden Reed are the 2 run backs for that. So you really are thinking blowout in that situation. So I don't mind going Jahmyr Gibbs. 2 minutes to lock, less than 2 minutes. Get your lineups in. Make sure you got them secured and locked. Happy Thanksgiving to all. Make sure you're hitting that like button for us. How many are we at on YouTube? 90. Come on, get me over 100 before we get out of here. 10 more likes for an hour of content on Thanksgiving. You don't have to thank me because it's not even Thanksgiving for me anyways, but you do have to thank Kyle because he is up bright and early giving some wonderful, wonderful content for us. One more QQ for you, Kyle, before we get out of here. We're 1 minute before lock. FanDuel Cash, Brandon Cooks, or Christian Watson?
I would say Watson out of those. I would say Cooks out of those 2, but I would also like to say Jaden Reed over both of them.
Yeah, I agree as well. And if you already have Reed, I think it's definitely Cooks on there. Otherwise, you're getting too much exposure to that team. So Reed number 1, Cooks number 2, Watson number 3. I think that's going to do it. We're 1 minute to lock. We covered all of the QQs. We in both Discord and the YouTube chat. We did our ad reads. We covered all the single games. We covered the main slates on both sites. Kyle, do you got anything else for the people before we get out of here?
No, I mean, I just hope everyone has a great holiday, enjoys the football, enjoys the food, and enjoys whatever festivities they have or don't have, or just enjoys the day. And hopefully it's a good one.
Couldn't agree more. One more before we get out of here. Pick 3, Charbonnet, Hall, Lockett, Stevenson. So I think that's Breece Hall and Ramondre Stevenson for a single entry. Or sorry, for a season long.
Yeah. So it's Charbonnet, Hall,
Lockett, and Stevenson. I would go Charbonnet, Lockett, and Hall.
I would as well.
Yeah. I like it.
It's close though.
Yeah, close as well. Oh, Oh, Brian Robinson was the last option. So yeah, I would go Brian Robinson over Tyler Lockett. I think I would go Charbonnet, Brian Robinson, and Brees Hall, and then maybe if you get Antonio Gibson ruled in, maybe you make that pivot to Tyler Lockett instead. All right, have a great Thanksgiving, everyone. That'll do it for the RotoGrinders pre-lock show. No more, lots of written content for the rest of the day, so we will have showdown, expert survey, and stuff like that. I got Prize Picks comments as well, and so make sure we got lots and lots of written content. Check that out if you want more. But I believe this will be it for video content for the rest of the day. So thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Good luck in your contests. Happy Thanksgiving. We're out of here. Peace.